Hi everyone, my name is Janine Ko and I graduated from York University with a bachelor's degree in biology. I remember back when I was applying to various colleges, I was just obsessed about getting into prestigious schools that I didn't consider other important factors of life that I needed to consider when applying and accepting college offers. Since students cannot physically visit campuses during this time, and there are not a lot of resources out there that provide authentic and personal student experiences, I've invited some upperclassmen and alumni to tell us more about what they wish they knew in high school and in freshman year. Hopefully, this video will help you make a more informative decision. And if you're into these kind of videos, education technology, productivity, and college, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and give me a thumbs up. So the cast will introduce themselves first, starting with Grace.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Janine, for having us on. My name is Grace, and I'm a rising senior at Northeastern University in Boston. I'm majoring in business marketing and minoring in computer science. I have just under a year left to go, and it's been a great experience so far in college. Outside of a classroom, I'm currently a product manager intern at Salesforce and a previous product manager co-op at GE Lighting. And I'm also a co-founder of Product Buds, one of the fastest growing product management communities.
Awesome. So Yoon, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, my name is Yoon. I just graduated from MIT. I studied a mix of computer science, econ, and data science. And so in the fall, I'll be working at a company based near DC starting late August. While at MIT, I was part of a dance team as well as a sorority.
So next up is Kelly.
Hi everyone, my name is Kelly. I'm a rising junior at NYU and I'm currently studying media culture and communication alongside a minor in business. I'm currently interning full-time on the sales team at ShareBite, which is a mission-driven corporate food ordering platform based in New York City. And I'm taking my time in college to sort of explore career paths in both marketing and consulting, but ultimately I hope to be able to build off a career off of a combination of the both. But I'm just really looking forward to interning at First and First Consulting as a strategy and analytics intern come when the fall comes over. And so when I'm not working and I'm not doing schoolwork, I love taking walks. I like doing yoga. And a fun fact about me is that I've been vegetarian my entire life.
Awesome. So we have Kaylee next.
My name is Kaylee, and I'm a rising sophomore at Stanford University. I'm currently studying this one interdisciplinary major called Symbolic Systems, which is a mix between computer science, psychology, linguistics, and philosophy, kind of a mouthful there. Currently this summer, I'm interning as a product manager intern at a local artificial intelligence startup near Stanford, and I hope to become a product manager in the future. In college, I'm pretty involved in Stanford Women in Computer Science and the Stanford Farm Club.
So next up we have Pietro.
Hi everyone, my name is Pietro. I'm a recent graduate of Boston University. I studied business and computer science. At BU, I founded Pride in Business, which is the LGBT business club. For my current career, I am slated to go work at Workday as an integration consultant, so like tech consulting. But some of my previous internships have ranged from I worked at a startup in Cape Town, South Africa. I worked at a pharma company, and most recently, I was an intern at a plant-based food startup.
So next up we have Prasoon.
Hi everyone, my name is Prasoon. I'm going to be a junior at UW-Madison. I'm studying computer engineering and computer science, and currently I am a software engineering intern at Medtronic. On campus, I'm pretty involved with the Wisconsin Consulting Club, so that's kind of a diverse background for me, I guess, coming from engineering. So it's like cool to get like a business perspective with that club. And then a club called Inside Wisconsin, which is all about interdisciplinary teams with engineering overall.
Finally, we have Cyrus.
Hey everyone. My name is Cyrus. I'm a rising senior at the University of Maryland College Park. I'm currently studying psychology, so I'm a psych major. But professionally, I would love to be a product manager. So that's what I'm doing right now. For this summer, I'm working on two main projects. I have a dating startup that I just started called Blind Love Letters with a few friends. That's going really fun. As well as on the side, I run a podcast, kind of just sharing the stories of people like us. And outside of, I guess, all my professional aspects, I really like to bake. Quarantine has me in the kitchen probably 20 hours of my day. So that's been fun. And I'm excited to be here with all of you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, so let's dive into the first question. So now looking back, what were the factors you considered and would have considered today when applying and accepting a college offer? So maybe we can start off with you, Cyrus.
Definitely. I think this is a question that I was reflecting with my brother, actually my twin brother, last week. And the biggest thing for me was the rigor of the school. I think that coming from high school, I came from a STEM program, and I think that I knew that I wanted to go to a school that had a ability to me to challenge myself professionally, but also personally. I think that that was really important. So I think the two biggest factors for me were rigor to make sure that I was getting growth, and no matter what I was pursuing. And the second thing was culture. I think I really wanted to go to a school where I felt there were communities that I would feel not only welcomed, but my voice would be valued and appreciated. So that's what I thought.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm all about that growth too. In fact, the past couple of months, I've been very involved with Product Buds, which is actually co-founded by Grace. And I'm really fortunate about this community because I've been learning so much, especially during this quarantine. So yeah, Grace, maybe you can tell us more about, the factors you would have considered.
Yeah, thank you so much, Janine, for supporting Product Buds. And many of you in this call are also in Product Buds as well. So thank you all for your love. I would say that when I was in high school, I was someone who was still very lost about what I wanted to do in college. I had chosen business entrepreneurship as kind of my declared major when I was applying to quite a number of schools. But I was still kind of just thinking like, I needed to pick a school that had a diverse set of offerings in terms of what majors and what programs they had so that I could keep my options broad just in case I wanted to change things up. And that was like a big factor for me, like a school that had a diverse set of programs. But also location was a big aspect for me. Pietro, you go to BU, Yoon, you went to MIT. We in Boston are pretty much surrounded by so many college students. And the value of that is not only being able to expand your social network, both professionally and personally, but also just like, I felt like Boston was such a great hub for innovation and really like people who are self-starters, people who were really eager to build up themselves, and that was a big factor for me. Like I love living in Boston, and it was like it really contributed to me like enjoying my college experience.
I would totally agree. I think Boston was one of the best schools, like best cities to be involved in, just because there is so many people, like so many students around. So I was able to talk to people at MIT and Tufts and Harvard, and so it was great to kind of network, but also like reflect on our college experience. So for me, I think things that I would have considered. I was similar to Grace in that I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I came into college sort of as a pre-med business student and came out as dual degree in business and CS. I think I would have definitely considered things beyond just like U.S. news ranks. I was so concerned about going to a school that had a good ranking, but I think reflecting on just like my degree programming, I would have looked a lot more beyond that. So I would have looked into specific courses that they offered. Let's say within computer science, I would have wanted to see what course programming they had. I would have also looked into job placement and co-ops and internships. I envy Northeastern for having such a rigorous co-op program, because I was lucky enough to like get an internships like throughout my college experience. But if the school doesn't support you through that and encourage it, I think that would be it would have. I don't know if I necessarily have the job that I have lined up today. And I also think you should consider like alumni network. Like, let's say I want a job at Apple. Um, Apple doesn't necessarily recruit at my school, so if you really want to go into an industry or a career, like I managed to get lucky going with Workday, but not many West Coast schools are incentivized to really recruit from BU because it's so far away. So maybe I would have considered more California schools.
Absolutely. So I think you touched upon having a vast alumni network, which you can reach out to. And I remember Kaylee specifically mentioned that for Stanford. So maybe Kaylee, you can talk a little bit more about your experience in Stanford and the alumni network.
Yeah, for sure. So I think when I was choosing a college to accept offers from, I was mainly looking at three main components. So one, location. I really enjoy being with my family and the West Coast in general. I love California, the weather. I can't stand the cold. And I think that's a lot like that factor of like having just that physical location in mind and like seeing what you are accustomed to in terms of weather and like urban setting versus suburban setting is somewhat overlooked in the college like choosing process in general. So I think that was one of my bigger factors for me. I wanted to stay West Coast and more specifically in California. The second was interdisciplinary and like flexibility in programming and classes and class choice. I think Stanford has done a really great job of offering like very interdisciplinary majors. So for example, my major is like a unique major that isn't really found anywhere else. And we have other ones like product design, computational mathematics and sciences or something like that. And it's super flexible in terms of like the classes we get to choose. And a lot of people actually I know have even created and like designed their own majors. So I thought that was really interesting because some colleges don't allow that. And then the third was, yeah, access to opportunities. And I think that's where the alumni network, it's so vast. And that really helps current students. We have like, especially this one program called Stanford Alumni Mentoring platform where current students can reach out to like alumni who have put themselves on this platform. And personally, I have reached out to like many, like 30 or 40 alumni, and they're super down to talk about anything they want or anything the student wants to talk about. And they're super friendly and open. And I think that's a good way to also tap into like referrals for internships and jobs and learning more about companies that current students are like matriculating into. So I thought those three factors for me personally were really important in the decision process.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think a lot of students right now, because especially during quarantine, it's easy to make excuses. And so, every one of you who's watching this right now, reach out when you need help. I think the worst case scenario would just be getting a no as an answer. At least at the end of the day, you tried. So, yeah, maybe Kelly, you can talk more about your experience.
Yeah, for sure. So for those of you that don't know, I talked to Janine about this, but I was born in Canada, raised in Canada, but my parents and we used to live in the U.S. for a little bit, and for them, location and academic prestige kind of always tied together. Um, and they just thought US schools were way better than schools in Canada. So um, that was one of the deciding factors. Like I had to be in the US. And additionally, they wanted me out of the house, like UBC, which is right next to me where I live. That wasn't even an option for me. So I couldn't even choose that. But I had never visited New York City before moving there. I chose NYU like literally because I just fell in love with the YouTubers that go there, and like they would be vlogging literally every single day. And it was already within the top 30 schools in the US, which was my target in high school. The location was prime, it's in the heart of Manhattan. Um, and I think for what I wanted to study as well, media culture communications, I thought that New York City would be best for that. And then I loved that it wasn't like a traditional school and that it doesn't have a campus, and it was sort of like a lot of buildings spread out into the city. And I thought the alumni network also looked great. And so I think so far NYU has met all of my expectations. I mean, I think given the price I paid to as an international student, I think that I've been pretty impressed, and I think it's pretty fair. But I think that I'm just really glad that I chose a school that could allow me to grow independently and then just without all these various constraints that there's a lot of when you're living in a town like mine or a neighborhood like mine that it's very sheltered and very like culturally homogenous compared to other areas of the world.
Hmm. So next up we have Yoon. Tell us more about, what MIT is like. I remember you mentioned it's a very academically inclined school as opposed to more like the creative side.
Yeah, so first of all, I agree with a lot of what people have said. I think when I considered applying to college, the factors that I thought about were like, in retrospect, not the best factors to judge by. So I'm like super impressed by how like everyone already knew what they wanted to do. But I think, yeah, for MIT, the biggest factor for me was that um, they had a lot of academic freedom, and um, it was not only the diversity of classes that they were offering, but that you could take whatever classes you wanted as long as you fulfilled the prereqs. And even then, the prereqs were kind of loose. So me, like not knowing what I wanted to major and not knowing what I wanted to study, that was huge for me. The city is also a big factor, as well as financial aid. But something that surprised me when I got to MIT was that actually a lot of people were not only academically focused, but also had a lot of other passions. So a lot of people danced, a lot of people did a cappella, and like I have a lot of friends who studied like mechanical engineering, but also comparative media studies or design in addition to like computer science. So that's something that surprised me, but ended up being like a huge, I guess, factor after the math of why I liked MIT.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think I kind of agree with what everybody said so far. One thing that I personally never thought of coming into college was, the alumni relations and the recruitment process for jobs. So for example, like with computer science and computer engineering, there's always the hype about going, either to California, East Coast, West Coast, and Madison being in the Midwest, they're not like heavily recruited on a lot of the companies on the West Coast, East Coast. So I guess in retrospect, I would have thought about that a little bit coming in, but at the same time, I didn't really know much about it. I'm the first person in my family to even like go to U.S. schools, so it's like completely different process. And my parents didn't really know much about that at the time. But I don't think Madison like lacks anything in terms of recruiting either. Like in reality, it just taught me how to kind of network and have some persistence with determining like where I want to go in terms of jobs. So I don't have any regrets there. One big thing that hasn't been touched upon with Madison was whether the professors were actually invested in undergrad education or not. So like every campus you go to, when you're trying to determine which school, they're going to say, yeah, all these professors, like, they love undergrad students. They're really invested in their education. And I'm sure that's probably true. One thing that I did to determine that and ultimately help me choose Madison was, it sounds kind of nerdy, but like at the time, senior year, I reached out to like some Madison professors and reached out to other professors that I was at other schools that I was looking at, and then tried to just determine the response rate. And Madison had I think I calculated it was like way above 50% response rate from professors reaching out to like a senior in high school. So I thought that was really valuable. And then I remember this past semester when I took a class with one of the professors I reached out to, he actually remembered who I was and how I reached out to him. So I just realized that like Madison's professors are very invested in your education. And I think that was definitely a big deciding factor for me when choosing Madison.
For sure. I do honestly believe that finding a mentor, even though you're still in your freshman year, is really important. I think a lot of students, they just reach out to upperclassmen, find their mentors by the time they're in senior year. And I think that's really too late, in my opinion, because you want to make sure that you get ahead of the game and not only in academics, but also in making life decisions. Right. Yeah. So I guess out of my curiosity, how many clubs did you guys apply to in freshman year and got into those clubs? Because I heard some stories about clubs being very competitive. It was sort of like an interview process, and I'm not really sure if it was the same for your specific schools. So can you tell us more about that, Prasoon?
Yeah, so this is actually something that's really interesting for me because at Madison, most clubs are not like interview process based. I had some friends that went to USC and they were telling me about how like a lot of clubs at USC you have to apply for, and a lot of times their freshman year they got denied, and so I felt kind of bad for them because we always hear about like you can join this club and that club, and I really had no idea coming into college that that's even a thing. So that was kind of surprising. Madison doesn't have that for most clubs that I know of. The Wisconsin Consulting Club is a little bit different. They did have an interview process for it. I wanted to be a part of it mainly because I wanted a different, like education base. Being in the engineering school, I don't really take a ton of business classes or just get that other side of like education overall. So I think Wisconsin Consulting Club was really helpful for that, and that's kind of why I applied. But all the other clubs that I'm a part of, I've not had to really interview for. But you can definitely tell those who are invested in the club versus those who are not, and like who put in the time and effort. And I think even if you don't necessarily, if there's not necessarily like an interview process, you can really tell who's a part of the club and who isn't.
Mm-hmm. How's it for you, Yoon? Is it very competitive in MIT?
I gotta say I have a pretty similar experience. Most of the clubs at MIT there is no interview process for, because a lot of it is interest based. If you're interested in it and you put a lot of time in and energy in, then you're a valuable member and like you can be a part of the club. And actually, a lot of clubs aren't that serious. People just like get together and have fun, eat some food. Um, there are a few business clubs that I joined early on that had an interview process, but I think it was because they were trying to emulate sort of maybe like the consulting interview process for like a job interview process, and that was just the way they got members. But yeah, I think it's a mix. Some clubs are more competitive than others, and some are just for fun. I think it depends on what you're interested in.
Yeah, so freshman year, I applied to one club, which was Stanford Women in Computer Science, and I luckily got in. So for that one, it was like a written application, then they had interviews, and then you like. I joined like Stanford Farmers. That was just like very open. There's a physical farm on campus. I'll talk about it a little later. It's very cute. And I think for most Stanford clubs, I think most clubs are very welcoming in the sense that if you don't get in as like maybe a board member or like the executive team, they still have a ton of events you can get involved in as like a general member. So like even for Stanford Women in Computer Science, I was accepted onto the board team, but then we hosted so many events for just like general members and other events for other people who maybe weren't on the board to get involved with. So I think in terms of like competitive clubs, those are mainly the pre-professional ones, and they were maybe like business programs or stuff like that, or like consulting. But they still have additional events and stuff like that, like email lists, and they'll send out opportunities for other people to get involved as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with what everyone has said so far. In freshman year, I didn't apply to that many clubs, but most of the clubs that I did apply to, even up till now, were pre-professional ones, and they have a very rigorous interview process. They have the whole application thing going on. But I think that does like specifically apply to business clubs, pre-professional clubs, things like that. One big piece of advice that I would give, just because a lot of the clubs that I have reapplied to in my second year of school, I did get into, and that was just because there's like club fair and things like that, and I would literally just talk to the members that were there. I would chat them up. I would make personal connections with them. They would find me, I don't know, pretty likable, I guess, and then we would act like we were friends. And then come the application process, I would ask them for help. They would be more than happy to help me out. And then that's how I kind of got my foot in the door. And so now I am in some of those clubs that I really thought I couldn't get into. And for one of the clubs, I remember I applied 2 times, and last semester was the 3rd time that I applied, and I finally did get in.
Also, maybe Pietro, you can talk more about that.
Yeah, I was, again, probably like your typical freshman, signed up for so many, had to unsubscribe like within the next month of them constantly emailing me to come to their meetings. The only club that I would say really stuck with me my freshman year was probably like a pre-professional AKSI. I did have to apply. It was a very rigorous interview process, but it was probably one of the best decisions I made in my college career. And I know I sound like really cliche saying that, but it again gave me a network of people, a network of mentors. I unfortunately didn't really find much connection with like professors. Like I did find with some faculty, but I not necessarily that mentorship experience. And I'm someone who like loves mentorship, needs it. I like ask everyone on the daily. Ask everyone on the daily like about my life decisions if I'm on the right track. And so AKSI definitely gave me access to people who were older, like seniors, even like 1 year older than me that kind of knew what they were doing. And so I liked that, and I thought, and that's something that you don't necessarily get with your cohort of like your friends because you're all in the same classes, you're meeting like the same people. You don't necessarily meet someone who's older who knows what an internship is, what a cover letter is, what a resume is.
Yeah, so when I heard Pietro say AK Psi, I was like, oh, that hurt. When I was a freshman, I applied to AK Psi and I didn't get an interview, which was a little sad, but I still made sure to apply to other clubs and see if I could get in. Other clubs on my campus that are not like within Greek life, you can pretty much join without going through a rigorous like interview or application. So I was in like the marketing association, I was in the entrepreneurs club, I was in another club called the Asian American Students in Action. It was like a mentorship program where like younger Asians on campus would be paired with older upperclassmen who were Asians, and like we would have conversations about race, about like our childhood upbringings, about our like lived experiences because of our race and ethnicity. So that was fun. And I would say that honestly, like clubs were something that allowed me to have a good experience with like meeting new people and keeping myself like um, busy outside of the classroom. But ultimately, I kind of after freshman year stopped doing as many clubs because I got really busy with like classes and job searching and all that stuff. So yeah, after freshman year, clubs kind of stopped for me. Well, actually, sophomore year I did a little bit, but yeah.
So I guess last one for Cyrus.
Yeah, so I think that like to echo kind of what everyone said, I think there's a mix. I think there's a mix. I think that for a lot of clubs is very open and they really preach kind of you're allowed to come in, we welcome you with open arms. And for some clubs it was very selective. I think like people had talked about those more of like your pre-professional organizations. I think that as like Pietro mentioned, as any freshman, you kind of come in with like wide eyes, and yeah, like we have like open fairs at UMD. Like in the beginning, it's called First Look Fair, so you get an inside look at like all the different clubs, meet the members, and I think just that gets a little bit overwhelming. So I think that if I can go back to my younger self, I tell myself like, hey, Cyrus, like write down three interests that you'd like to pursue in a club, and kind of target your searches for clubs within those three things, or five things, or three, four, five things that you're looking for. I think freshman year I was a bit ambitious. So maybe first semester I didn't necessarily join any specific clubs, but I think second semester I was involved in a couple things. So I think that was like on a diversity council. I joined a club called Real Talk, and that was kind of like a safe space for minority students, specifically like black and brown students. I was on a couple clubs for like there was even a Christian club I was in, just like religious, and then there was things for mental health. I think that's a really big thing for me, just being like an advocate for that. So I think if I can go back to my younger self, I tell myself kind of like target your search a little bit more, kind of tailor it to what specifically you think is okay, and you don't always have to join a club that is just here to boost you like academically. You should also get involved in things that you're passionate about outside of your academics, because then you are able to bring like more passion, more energy, and it fuels you in all of your searches.
Sure. Yeah, so I guess that concludes our discussion for today. Thank you so much all for being here. So the cast will be able to answer any questions you have specifically for their schools or for themselves. And I've also included their LinkedIn handles in the description box. So if you have any questions, please make sure to leave them in the comment section and feel free to connect with them. Otherwise, cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.